Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimish Radi, and I'm your host. I would just love starting this every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast, the impact it's having, the people it's reaching. I started it as a passion project. I was guided to by a message through the Akashic Records of My Voice, My Gift, and also I need to use it. So I started the podcast, named it after my friend, my mentor, Cedric Jeffrey. It has her initials. Started with a couple of episodes a month, and now we release 2 episodes a week. And I love receiving the message from you guys, the impact it's having. So if you're a regular listener, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. Let us know if you have any feedback. And please do like, comment, review if you like this episode. If there's any topics you want us to cover, let us know. I'm an Akashic record reader. I'm an Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And what I get to do is I get to guide people on their journey. I always say my intention is to anyone I connect with, leave them better than I found them. So I really hope and pray and calling my guys that this episode leaves you better than it found you. And my voice resonates. I have a beautiful mentorship program that I channeled through my co-host who's with me today, where we guide you to yourself, helping you release the layers that you're holding on to. You can choose to work with us, both of us together or individually, whatever feels right. I love that program. I love guiding you to the journey. Also, book an Akashic record reading. There's so many different ways that you can work with us. This podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my amazing, beautiful, stunning co-host, Stacey Brown. Stace, over to you. Please introduce yourself.
So good to be here again, friends. I'm happy to be a part of this podcast and to be able to use my voice to help you, the listener, on your healing journey. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from around the world. I'm also an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor. And I published my first book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender, and it's available on Amazon and Audible. I can't wait to see what we get into today, Nims. How you doing?
I am good. We just, I guess, under full disclosure, I got some feedback on the sound, so we've been trying different things, and we tried a couple of things today which technically didn't work yet, so we're working them through. So yeah, sometimes the human journey does presents its own challenges, but I'm here. And the topic that we picked today is, are you following your intuition or just overthinking everything? And this topic comes from, I've been asked a lot about using your intuition just over the last few days, more than normal. And I was just like, okay, what does this mean? So that's why we thought we'd dive into this topic of following your intuition and recognizing the difference between, sometimes your intuition and overthinking and even your ego. Actually, sometimes it's difficult to really understand the difference between the two. And I always talk about intuition, and for me, when you tap into your intuition, for me, it's normally the first thing that comes through, and it's normally quieter. And then what happens is your ego and your mind kind of starts to speak much louder, and this is where the doubts start to come in. So yeah, I'm excited about this topic. Tapping in, trusting your intuition. It feels so important right now as we go through the shift to be able to trust who you are and trust your intuition. So yeah, Stace, I'd love your feedback. How do you feel about trusting your intuition and kind of distinguish it between and the difference between your intuition and overthinking?
So I absolutely feel like that voice inside of us that overthinks is much louder than our intuitive voice. I feel like intuition comes in small whispers or nudges that are subtle at times. I've had it be loud when it's urgent, but for the most part, I would say it's more of a quiet whisper, and it's instinctive and it feels very connective. And that voice of doubt can be really loud. And so sometimes it can make it hard to listen to our intuition. I'm just trying to think about different experiences that I've had where I've led with my intuition and things have worked out beautifully. And it's usually when I don't stop to overthink it, Nims. It's usually when I take the time to just listen and that instinct comes pretty quickly. The problem is, I think for a lot of us, is that that intuitive feeling is subtle and it's a quiet nudge, and it can be overpowered by the voice of our ego, which tends to be a lot louder. I find this with clients very often. When I'm working with clients, they struggle to listen to that intuitive voice. And I tell people all the time, it's because it is so much more subtle and quiet. And it takes a little more intention to listen to it. There are times where I feel like I've been so aligned in listening to my intuition. And then there are other times where I feel so disconnected. And I feel a huge part of it is how we approach it. Are we in a peaceful space when we're seeking answers? Are we feeling urgent about our quest for an answer? Sometimes, depending on our mindset, can also really impact whether we're able to listen to our intuition or not. And I think oftentimes we overthink things, don't you?
No, 100%. It's it's our fear that consumes us. It's our ego wanting us to stay the same because if we trust our intuition, then what if we change and what if we fall? So it's not, we get frustrated ourselves for the time. It isn't a bad thing. It is actually your intuition trying to protect you. And sometimes, sorry, not your ego trying to protect you. And sometimes it's you got to have a conversation with the ego because we don't need protecting, right? Not always, anyway. So, but it is that trusting. If you're trying to make a decision, if you listen to your intuition, it's light. It's not heavy. It's not emotional. So, and what I find with a lot of people is that internal conflict delays trusting your intuition. I find with a lot of people, in the end, you end up trusting your intuition, but you have this internal battle that goes on for a while, where you have this internal debate: should I? Shouldn't I? What do I really feel I should do? And it's that indecision, and where does it come from? A lot of time, it's FOMO, fear of missing out. If I make the wrong thing, if I make the wrong decision, then what if I miss out on something that's meant to be? What if I miss out on my destiny? The reality is, whatever you're here for, whatever's meant to find you will find you. Whatever's not meant to find you will miss you. So, but it's that we go through this debate, and right now I talk about this a lot on this podcast. I feel like the human and the spirit for many of us are disconnected because we're going through the shift. The spirit, the soul understands it, whatever you want to call it. The human doesn't. The human wants to control it, and so we have this disconnect between the human and spirit. And then right now, when you're trying to make a decision, because there's such a big disconnect, what happens is this, trying to trust your intuition becomes even harder, because what happens is when you don't trust your intuition becomes quieter. And when you're trying to make an intuitive decision, your ego, your mind actually starts to speak even louder. And then you start to doubt yourself, right? And the other thing that I've been talking to my clients about recently quite a lot is trusting your body. Because the body is such a natural channel. And, when we feel what we feel in our body, it's another way to kind of really tap into your intuition. And I'll just give you a quick example. If you just, if you close your eyes and you ask yourself a question and make it a yes or no question, and then you ask that question and you ask, well, should I do that? Or, is the answer yes? Feel what the reaction in your body's like. If it's a gentle reaction, sometimes it's a sway. But if it's a gentle reaction, it feels light. Then trust in that. If you get a whistle, if you get negative, if you get like a heavy, intense reaction, then maybe that. whatever you're asking isn't right. If you add intuition to that and you kind of listen to the soft voice and align that with how your physical body feels, what you're doing is you're allowing your intuition to speak even louder, because you're allowing your physical body to support your intuition. And your physical body is the vessel for your soul. So and there's a knowingness there, right? There's been so many times where I've got the nudge to not do something or not go somewhere, and I've followed it. Or even to go somewhere. It's like I'll always say, the deal with my guides is I'm going to just keep showing up wherever you feel you want me to go. I will go. And if I'm invited to something and it's like it feels right, I don't know why I'm there. I'm in places and I'm like looking around, thinking I'm not sure, and then I'll end up having a conversation with one person. I'm like, okay, that's why I was there. Sometimes we go to places and that place just needs our vibration. But just closing your eyes and asking that question, letting the soft voice of your intuition comes through, and then adding to that, how does your body, your physical body feels? It adds to it, and it gives it so much more power. And the more you trust your intuition, the more it grows, and the more it becomes natural. But so, going back to my original point, watch the internal conflict between the human and your ego, and your spirit and your soul, and just feel the energy shift and feel. Sometimes you got to talk to your ego. Give your ego a name. I'll always suggest, maybe pick a funny cartoon character, Donald Duck, Bugs Bunny, whatever. Maybe I'm sure there's some more modern ones, right? But give it Bob, Joe, whatever, right? Give it a name that allows you to converse differently. And sometimes you got to talk to your ego and say, you know what? Thanks, but we don't need protecting anymore. And like I said, the more you trust your intuition, I feel like intuition is always generally quiet, but it does become a little bit louder. And the reason I feel like it's quiet is because it's asking you how much you really want it. How much are you willing to trust? And that's where I feel that we're being pushed right now, is how much are we willing to trust? So Stace, when I ask you to tap into your physical body and I kind of go through that, how does that make you feel, adding the physical element to trusting your intuition and those voices?
I think the body responds to that intuitive sense. And when we're feeling like it's our intuition, our body lets us know. And when it's something of the ego, we can feel a resistance to it as well. So it's to me, it's fascinating to tap into the physical body and check in and see what you're feeling. I'm going through something right now, and intuitively, I feel like I need to speak up and use my voice about a circumstance I'm going through right now. And I can feel it in my body. It was hard to sleep last night. I tossed and turned, churning about the decision I need to make. Today, I feel like it's sitting with me very heavy in my body. And the reason why I feel that is because I'm not listening to my intuition. My intuition is telling me to speak up, and I haven't yet. And I'm finding that I'm having this like physical response to it where I feel churned up, for lack of a better way to describe it. And I know that if I honor my intuition and I speak up, I know I'm going to feel this massive release. And I think that's what's important, is when we're listening to our intuition and we're not holding back and we're speaking our truth and we're being open about our journey, it's revitalizing. It makes us come alive. Whereas when we're holding back, sometimes we can close down. We can have our guard up. We can feel like we don't have a voice. And so I think it's really important to listen to our intuition because of what it does to our physical body when we hold back. It makes an impact, Nims, and I have felt it before. I've had plenty of times where I haven't listened to my intuition and I've deeply regretted it. And the signs were there ahead of time that I was going against my intuition. And the thing is, friends, is that when our intuition speaks to us and we don't listen, that whisper gets louder and louder until we do. And I think that's the other thing that's important to know is sometimes we can think, well, I'm just going to ignore that. Like it doesn't matter. And then it creeps in and it creeps in and it creeps in until we acknowledge it and do something about it. And that's the other part of having an intuitive sense is that voice can get louder, but initially it's quite quiet. And so the question is, how long do you let it go on, whatever circumstance or situation you're in? How long do you let it go on before you listen to your intuition? And for me, sometimes I've let it go too far. And right now, with this particular circumstance, I'm feeling that right now. I'm feeling the voice getting louder. And the question is, when am I going to listen? And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm telling our listening audience this, right? Like, I'm an intuitive. You would think that this would be easy for me. But friends, it's not easy for anyone, okay? It is one of those things that we're having a human experience. And so sometimes the human can take over and we don't listen to that inner voice. And it happens to the best of us. And in this current circumstance that I'm in, I'm definitely feeling that way. I'm feeling like I should know better and I should do better. And now the voice is getting louder and it's like, Stacey, do something. When are you going to do something? And for me, the longer we wait, the harder it gets.
So true. There's so much wisdom there. And it's like, yeah, there's no judgment. It's like, yeah, you may be spiritual, you may be intuitive, and you're still having a human experience, right? So, that human experience still doesn't want to be in uncomfortable situations. And, there's a knowingness that, sometimes we need to speak our truth and have a difficult conversation. But you resist it and you're like, well, maybe I'll hold off. Maybe things will change. And, this is what the universe does. It gives you simple nudges. It gives you simple intuitive messages. And, yes, it does get potentially louder, but potentially more painful, right? Those little shoves become pushes, they become kicks. And, eventually it becomes really painful. So this is a kind of like a journey, right? This is why sometimes, even though we know that we've got to pull the trigger on something, we've got to make a decision that maybe it's going to impact others, and it's going to make, then you kind of delay it because it's like you want to make the decision, but there's implications of making that decision which you'll have to deal with. So it's like, it's just an interesting journey. I'll give you I'll give you an example. I really kind of try and focus on improving this podcast and kind of seeing different ways. So it's like once a year we have a big podcast event in the UK. The podcast show is called, and it's interesting. This year I planned to go. I booked the ticket well in advance and all the stuff, but I was just really busy. I was just had so much on that week, and there's a part of me that's like, well, am I going to get much from? Because I don't get that much from it. I'm like, well, but it's like, my deal. I'm going to keep showing up. So last year when I went, when I was driving in, so in the UK, if you get caught using your phone while you're driving, you get 6 points and a big fine. So, but ironically, I was driving. I had my AirPods in, so I wasn't using my phone, but the phone was on my lap. I didn't know that you're not allowed to have the phone in your lap. And there was a cyclist, somebody on, it's a bicycle, somebody just driving through, had a camera on his helmet and was just recording people in their cars and seeing if they're on the phone. My phone was on my lap. So he knocked on the window, so you're not supposed to use your phone. I was like, well, I pointed to my AirPods, but he still recorded, sent that recording to the police, and I still got the 6 points because you're not allowed to have the phone. So it's like, that was last year. It was frustrating, annoying. I was like, all right, fine. And this year I was like, I don't really feel like going, but you know what? I'm still going to go. You know, well, I might meet one person. Then on the way back, I had a little car accident. I'm like, wait, the university telling me definitely not to go to the podcast show. So yeah, it's kind of like, was last year a message? Maybe. And I'm just giving you a simple example, a human frustrating one. But, when the university uses the same message twice, you got to make sure you listen. So, and the other angle is, as spiritual people, sometimes we do overcomplicate simple decisions because we have all these abilities, all these experiences, and it's like, well, okay, you know what? Yeah, let me try this one modality. I picked an oracle card and it's told me this. It feels pretty clear, but you know what? Let me use the pendulum. And it's like, sometimes it's a simple decision. It's a yes or no, trusting your intuition. And it's like, I feel the nervousness we're going through right now because of the big shift. So we are putting more pressure on ourselves for the decisions we're making. But ironically, I feel like we have more support. And I feel like there isn't such a thing as a wrong or right decision. There's just a learning opportunity. So if you make a decision that in the end feels like it's wrong, then you got to sit back and say, what's my learning decision that comes from it? And, don't beat yourself up. Stacey's example, she can quite easily sit there and say, I knew this was coming. I knew I need to do something. We have this conversation with ourselves. Unless you got a time machine, you can't go back, right? So, but really, let us ask you in this moment, are you overcomplicating simple decisions? Are you trusting your intuition? Are you listening to your body? And it just, I'm very conscious that we make things sound easy sometimes, and it isn't. But it doesn't have to be complicated. And what I mean by that is just some of the things we've talked about today, listening to your inner voice, the one that speaks lighter, the one that's full of love, trusting your physical body when you ask a question. And the other thing you can do is you can use your physical body like a pendulum. You muscle testing. You can just ask your body, okay, you know what? What's my signal for yes? And then maybe your body swings a certain way or does a certain thing. What's my signal for no? Start to trust those signals. This is what I mean by it doesn't have to be complicated. But some of the decisions we're making right now, and I talk about it in the Akashic message, I feel like the decisions we're making now are foundational for whatever's coming next. But I don't feel like we're meant to make decisions that, 5 steps ahead. I feel like the decisions we're making right now are just for this next step. One step at a time. One step at a time. But I encourage you to ask yourself that question. Is my human and spirit at a disconnect right now? Is that why decisions take so long in Holden? So if I start to trust my physical body more, and maybe you trusting your intuition actually allows your physical and your spiritual to get more connected. I'd also, as I said, recommend talking to your ego. That helps. But Stacey, the example you gave, it's just thank you again for being so vulnerable. I do feel like the universe wants to support us. I do feel like we have a knowingness inside that we've worked really hard for. But do you feel like as spiritual beings, we do overcomplicate things at times?
Absolutely. I absolutely feel that we overcomplicate things. And when we're listening to our intuition and we're following those nudges, things usually run much smoother. I think about the intuitive sense that I used in the process of writing my book. And the whole thing felt divinely guided, is the first thing. But I was really in tune to what messages were coming through. And not just in writing the book, but through naming the book and through the image that's on the cover of my book. There were so many things that were guided by my intuition. And it's powerful when you're in that space, because one step kind of leads to the next step, leads to the next step. And what we call that, like, being in flow, right? And when you're in flow, it's a great space to be in. But it takes really being dialed in and paying attention to the signs that your body's giving you, to what's happening around you. There's a whole process, in my opinion, to listening to your intuition, where you're checking in with your physical body to see what's going on. You're checking in with yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And if you feel that little click, like everything feels like it's in place, that's when you know that you're operating from a space of your intuition. Okay. Doesn't mean that you aren't going to have bumps in the road, because you are. We all do. We're having a human experience. But we can get to that sweet spot simply by paying attention to what our body's telling us. And I have felt many times in my life where I have been in that sweet spot and everything feels really good. I think the other part to this is you have to continue to pay attention. It's not like you can just pay attention, listen to your intuition, and then everything's going to work out for you. It's checking in with every decision you're making, with every interaction you're having. Following those nudges consistently throughout leads to living a peaceful, aligned existence. It's not just one day, right? It's a way of life. It's a way of doing things differently than what you normally would, and paying attention to the inner signs versus what's happening around you. What is your inner voice telling you? Not the people around you, not the circumstances around you, but what do you feel within? And then following that as your guide, okay, as your North Star, that point that is telling you you're on the right path. And even as somebody who uses their intuition for a living, there are still times where I doubt or I question. I have it happen during readings. I've had the experience during a reading where I've had to pause and reset and make sure that I'm paying attention to my intuition, especially when it comes to other people and delivering them messages. I feel a very strong responsibility to dial in on that intuitive part of me and make sure that what I'm delivering is aligned and feels right. And that can be scary too, especially when you're using your intuition to help someone else. There's a huge responsibility to feeling that you want to make sure that your messages are accurate, that you're delivering it as it's coming to you. And there are moments at times where I'll get a little bit of stage fright before a reading, thinking, okay, am I in the right space? Am I connected? Wanting to make sure that I can deliver the best parts of myself. So it's interesting, Nims, because I don't think often about my intuition. I lead with it. But when we're sitting here talking about it, I recognize that even I, as an intuitive, need to take more time to pay attention to the messages that come through and what they mean.
And thank you for saying that, right? We're all kind of in this work in progress. We're all, because sometimes the other things we do is like when you have that intuition and you have the messages, sometimes you kind of like, you do overcomplicate it, right? It's like, well, give me a sign, give me one more sign. And so you got to recognize the difference between waiting for a sign and avoiding action. And the example you gave, there is normally, if it's a heavy decision, you normally get the messages in different ways, but there's that knowingness in you that you've got to do something. And being gentle with yourself, because it's like if you're avoiding it because it's a difficult situation, then be gentle, right? Just acknowledge your intuition. But there's multiple. Stacey said there's multiple ways, but trusting trusting your nudges, they do become clearer over time the more you trust them. But also remember that sometimes the universe gives you opportunities to expand and grow. So sometimes when you don't follow the intuition, or you don't follow your intuition, and something happens, it's the universe reminding you of the power of your intuition. So again, you can sit there and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that again. And you have this internal conversation. Or you can just say, universe, thank you for the reminder. I got it. It's because it isn't always what happens to you, it's how you respond. So what if, when something you do take longer, or when something potentially goes wrong, you kind of like, you see it as a learning experience or as a reminder to trust your intuition, because we all have that knowingness. We all have that, and the other thing, right now, trusting your intuition, I talk a lot about, kind of picking your soul family. I feel like we're going through this phase where we're being challenged with the people around us. And it's like, well, are they meant to be with us through this next phase? Do we have a soul contract with them? This is a beautiful way of trusting your intuition. Tap into everyone individually and just ask, well, hold on a second, what do I still need to learn from this person? Is our soul contract complete? Allow yourself to feel and listen. That comes through from your intuition. And your intuition is a muscle. But like I said, the universe has a great way of reminding us too. And yeah, it's just ask yourself, do you overcomplicate things? Is there a decision you're waiting on right now and it's like you're waiting for another signal, or you're procrastinating on it or whatever? And if you're just in this moment, as you listen to this conversation, close your eyes and ask, how do you feel about it? And you make a decision. Because the other things we do is we make a decision and we don't follow through. In a conversation, it's like, I'm definitely going to do this. I'm definitely going to do this. And it's like, you procrastinate or you delay, or it's like, well, that's where you've got to again check in with it. It's like, well, hold on, am I delaying because it doesn't feel right? Or am I delaying because I'm worried about the implications of it? Again, it's a beautiful way of trusting your physical body, your the power of who you are. And it isn't, we make it sound easy, but it isn't always black and white. But again, it doesn't need to be complicated. It is a leap of faith. And the more of those leaps you take, the easier it gets. And Stacey gave a great example. Just because you've done a lot of work and you're a healer and all that, doesn't mean that you don't have experience to expand. It doesn't mean that you don't go through something where you delay. This is it. Our soul chose us to be human, so it means that sometimes we're going to have some human experiences. Sometimes the guides are going to have jokes with us. And I often wonder, and this is a question for you, Stacey, why is our intuition quiet while our ego of fear talks very loud? And I come to the conclusion that our intuition doesn't need to be loud. It needs to speak with certainty, but not loud. It's that, and it's also our training. How much do we trust? How much do we trust ourselves? And I do feel the intuition gets louder just a little bit, though. As the more you trust it, the more actually you hear more from your intuition. It's just you hear less from your ego. But it's a timing thing. So, Stacey, let me ask you that question. Why do you feel that our intuition, the volume, is kind of low and kind of steady, and compared to our ego, our fear, that is loud?
I don't even know that I really feel like, now that we're talking it out, I don't even know that I feel that our intuition is quiet. I just feel that our ego is very loud. And I feel that a lot of us instinctively go to that louder voice, right? If someone's yelling at you, you're going to listen to that more than somebody whispering. It's natural. The noise of the outside world can be loud and overwhelming. And it's not just our ego, it's the other people around us and the conversations that we have and the interactions that we have. All of those things play a part in whether we listen to our intuition, right? Like sometimes that friend that has an opinion overrides your sensation of knowing. And I think a lot of it is just those voices are louder. The outside world, the noise is louder. And I also think that a lot of us struggle to trust ourselves and to trust that inner knowing because it does come through quieter than some of the outside noise. I think a lot of us will have this insecurity or this self doubt like, how could I possibly know that? Or how do I know that that's right? Or this can't be right? Or it can't be that easy, right? There are all these things that we can say to convince ourselves that what we know isn't true. And so I think it takes discipline to sit and listen to your intuition on a regular basis. I think it takes trusting yourself and recognizing the connection that you have with your higher power. I think there's a whole lot of things that come into play for people who do listen to their intuition. And one of the biggest things I would say is creating stillness in your life to evaluate what feels right, whether it's through a walk in nature by yourself, whether it's a drive in the car with no music on, just listening to the silence, whether it's a formal meditation or a Reiki session, finding pockets of time where you can quiet the outside noise and listen to your inner self is one of the most important things, in my opinion, because life moves at such a fast pace. There's so much coming at us all the time. But when we get intentional about what we do with our time and we practice the pause, that's when we can really dial into our intuition and turn the volume up so that it's not just a whisper, it becomes louder. So those are just a few things I'm thinking of, Nims. What about you?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I agree with practicing the pause because, we are, as humans, our energy, our vibration is to react. So if we get attacked, we either defend or we attack back, or we retreat or attack back. And when you do the things you talked about, the self-care, actually it does allow you to respond. So it kind of gives you that more certainty. It's like building on your base. So yeah, I mean, such an important thing, self-care, time in nature, meditation, time with, people that lift your vibrations, time just laughing. If you're not cry. It's just the more that you experience this human existence, the better. But the other thing I'd recommend is acknowledge your fear. Acknowledge your ego. Sometimes we get trained to push away our fear, our ego. No, acknowledge it. Sit with it. Own it. But then, if it's not right, you also got to let it go. I mean, what's courage? Courage is having fear and doing it anyway. And sometimes we do sit with the decision and we procrastinate, and it's not because we haven't made the decision. It's because, well, again, we're just putting off the consequence of that decision. So, there's a divine timing to it. So you also got to sit with it and say, well, hold on, have I made this decision? Okay, yes, I have. What's stopping me from actually pulling through? And then you trust in the divine timing of it too, right? It's just, like I said, it's not black and white, but it's the more that you can trust. And, if you're struggling with a decision, sitting with it and just continue to overthink it, waiting for more signs, and sometimes you have got to just get on with it, make a decision, and move on. Because how much time do we waste by not making a decision quickly? And where does that come from? It's the fear of getting it wrong. But sometimes you've got to play out the movie and say, okay, you know what? I'm delaying this decision because I'm worried about making the mistake. All right, let me play out the movie. So if I make a wrong decision, what are the implications? If I make a right one, what's the implications? And sometimes what you'll find is the so-called, the implications of making a wrong turn actually in that big. But you just built this decision up to be so much bigger than it really is. And, waiting for signs, trusting, kind of like, oh, give me one more sign, give me one more sign. Just, it's a leap of faith right now. And the other thing to bear in mind is tap into the energy of what's happening on the planet. Because when the planet is going through a shift, maybe that's what's causing your uneasiness. So it's always good to check with yourself and say, okay, this uneasiness I'm feeling, is it mine or is it somebody else's? Is it the planet's? And if it's not yours, you return to source. So it's like, he's using multiple things that we've talked about. Of course, self-care. Of course, just breathing through it. And of course, just, using your physical body to really check with how do you feel about it and being honest with yourself. The big question to ask yourself is, what are you going to do if you don't genuinely know what's coming next? Sometimes we hold on to making a decision, we hold on to people because we're worried about if we make that decision and we create a space in our world, what are we going to do with it? And I guess that's hard, right? Especially, when you have people in your world that's been there for a while. It's like, well, hold on a second. If I really follow through, then what's going to happen? And, I feel like a lot of people are being cleared from my path. And for me personally, over the last 3 years, there's been so many people that left my path. And I'm always like, I always love the phrase that, God clears the path because he hears conversations that people have behind your back. And I have faith that people leave my path because they're meant to. But I also have faith that if I create space in my world, then new people will come through. So this thing, you also got to be comfortable with not knowing what's next. And it's interesting, right? So, I mean, Stace, how do you feel about that when you have to make a decision and you actually don't know genuinely what's going to come next? How does that make you feel? Even though, let's say you have a scenario where your physical body is like, you've got to do it, but it's like, well, if I do this, it's going to cause chaos, and maybe I don't want to, maybe I want to delay, or whatever story we tell ourselves. How does that make you feel, and how do you process it?
It makes me churn. It makes me anxious in my decision when I don't know what's going to come next. And sometimes it can make me hold back from making a decision because I'm afraid of what is going to happen, what the outcome is going to be. And I think those are the times where we can hold back on listening to our intuition. And it can be an issue because we intuitively, instinctively know we need to make a decision. And yet we hold back out of the fear of what's coming next. And from that space, I believe that's where that voice gets louder and louder until we listen. And it can be challenging because we don't know what's coming next, right? We don't know what we're creating space for when we let that person go. Or we don't know what opportunity is going to come our way when we walk away from that job that didn't feel right. Like it can be scary. It's interesting because I went into the salon where I was working recently, and I think intuitively, I knew it was going to be a challenge for me to have a boss. I've been self-employed for 15, almost 20 years. And instinctively, I knew that I was probably going to struggle with having a boss. But it wasn't until I really got in there and started seeing the dynamic that I realized, wow, my intuition was right. This is not something that's going to be aligned with me long term. And I think that when we don't listen to our intuition, we can kind of get like a slap on the wrist or a smack in the face or whatever you want to say can happen, where we have this moment, this aha moment. Oh my gosh, my intuition was right. And that can be really hard when you haven't listened to it. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, I could have made this so much easier on myself had I just listened from the beginning. And the number of times that I've had that happen is pretty crazy, because I feel like I can be quite stubborn. And it has taken me a lot of effort to get to a place of listening more to my intuition and less to that ego. But Nims, I'm telling you, there are times where I've ignored it, and then I get the sign later on that it was right all along. Have you had that happen?
Yeah, no, all the time. It's just, and even, sometimes your mistakes lead to your biggest breakthroughs. It's kind of like, I mean, even starting this podcast, it's like I procrastinated for so long. It's like, oh, do I have the right software? Do I have the right headphones? The right speaker? And I'm just like, oh, in the end, I just sat in front of my MacBook and put my AirPods in and recorded. And it's just like, wait, it was that simple? And it's just, sometimes you go on this journey and it's okay, but it's just like, even your example of being in a salon, where you had a boss, knowing, going from self-employed to, you knew that was going to be difficult, but sometimes you have to go through that journey to realize what's not for you. So now there's no doubt in your mind that actually having a boss in that kind of way, in that scenario, isn't going to work for you. But if you didn't go down that journey, then maybe it'd still be a choice. Maybe there's a part of you that's like, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try, just, so sometimes it's not a mistake you're making. It's confirmation of the path that you need to take by going on a different path. It's just fun. If you can have fun, if you can maybe see yourself as a student. So when something happens, be curious about it. Oh, is that interesting? Okay, I wonder what that taught me. And it's just that maybe that reduces the energy and the vibration, the pain you put on making a decision. Because you see everything as an experience, as an experiment. As we start closing this episode, if you've been spending months, weeks, or years trying to decide, delaying things, maybe the answer isn't more thinking. Maybe it's just trusting yourself enough to take the next step. Taking that leap of faith. That's what we're going through right now. There's such a shift, and we don't know what's coming next. So focusing just on the next step. Because the other thing we do sometimes is we don't take the next step because we want to know what the next 5 steps are. You're like, you know what? When I create a plan, when I know what the next 5 steps are, then I don't think we have that luxury so often anymore. I feel like we've been pushed to just take the next step and trust. It's like, it's like walking up an escalator, but only being able to see the next step. And what if the next step is you falling off a cliff? Who knows, right? But just take that next step. Feel it, trust it, and do it. So yeah, as we start closing this episode out, look, if anything we said resonate, if this episode resonate, please do like, comment, and share, because it does help, right? It gets to more people. So yeah, that's one of our asks for sure. If any of our voices resonates, reach out, send us a DM, follow us on social media, book a discovery call. Maybe we're meant to guide you. Maybe we're meant to hold your space. This month, as we kind of enter into June, and I feel like it's pivotal in the way that making smaller intuitive next steps is more powerful than having a massive plan with multiple steps. And just be gentle with yourself, but take that next step. What advice would you have, Stace, as we close out this episode?
I would really encourage our listeners to take time out from the busyness of your life, from the chaos, from the noise. Take intentional, consistent time out to listen to your intuition. I believe the more that we do that, the more tuned in we can be, and the better equipped we are to make decisions in our lives. And so take that time, be intentional with it. Sometimes doing nothing is exactly the right thing in order to listen to our intuition, trust that knowingness, and move forward making decisions that are aligned for your highest good.
Great advice, just trusting you. It's a great point. It's like, how often do we look outside for the answers? And that's also what delays us. We try and ask everyone else's opinion. But the first and foremost is to trust you. Trust your physical body, trust your intuition. And, I agree, time in meditation, they say that, praying is asking, meditation is listening, right? So listening to your intuition, understanding everything you need inside you is powerful. If you work with us and we help to guide you, we're still guiding you to you. We're guiding you to help you to understand you better. I don't like telling anybody what to do. I tend to guide you to you. I intuitively, I love doing it. Everything we need is inside us. We just got to trust ourselves more. Thank you for listening. Thank you for this space. Thank you for being here with us. This is an interesting time, and remember, your soul chose to be here. We are sending you so much love and light, and truly hope this episode inspired you today. Take care. Bye for now.